who is overvalued and who is undervalued in round 3 of your Dynasty rookie drafts. We're talking all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. Welcome to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me as always is Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Matt, how's it going?
It's going great, man. We had a really good conversation yesterday, and I think the third round might be more interesting than the second round that we're going to talk about. So I'm psyched to dig into these.
Yeah, I left that conversation yesterday thinking I want multiple second round picks because there's several players that are falling to that second round, especially some of those receivers that I really like. And looking over this list of names, I kind of think the same thing. So
yeah,
if you stocked up on second and third rounders due to the hype of this rookie class, maybe that you've been disappointed leading up to the NFL draft and leading up to rookie drafts because the class was simply overrated, honestly, by us and by almost everyone in the Dynasty community. This is where you can make some profit maybe on some of those picks, some of those deals that you've made. Matt, I know, we're talking Dynasty rookie drafts here. You said your first one is kicking off. What pick do you have? What's it looking like? Who are you targeting? Give away all your secrets here.
Yeah, I am going to give away all my secrets. This is my only superflex league, which is faulty on my part because I was late to the party on superflex. I have the 9th pick, which to me is a little bit of no man's land. My team is good, not great. And we're very early on. I mean, it's, Bijan's gone, Stroud, Young, Richardson, Gibbs are all gone. I probably will just settle for one of the receivers or look to trade down. I'm even considering Kincaid, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, Marcus and Cade had the first round conversation on Monday. Kincaid has an ADP of 9 overall, or an ADP that places him 9 overall. So, that would be a reasonable consideration. You've got a Will Levis decision there to make. I know you're not a big fan, but we also know how tough it is to get quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks, young-ish, I guess I should say, with Levis in those super flex leagues. So yeah, keep us updated on that. We'll check back in next week. I had my first rookie draft. I've done a couple rookie auctions, but I had my first rookie draft last week. It was actually a live one. We all got together on Zoom and drafted. That was really fun. A good format, good way to do that. Got it all knocked out in one night, made a bunch of trades. So that was actually, I didn't make a bunch of trades. I've got some trade envy, but there were a bunch of trades. There were a bunch of trades going on. I didn't get in on them, unfortunately.
So I'm going to take this opportunity to ask your opinion real quick because Levis crossed my mind at 9 just because I think he's going to be a starting quarterback this year at some point and next year. But I have Herbert, Carr, Pickett, Purdy, and Brissett. I don't know that he's noticeably better than them, and my other positions aren't quite as strong. Would you still be in the Levis market?
If your league is active and has a bunch of trades, I think I would probably take Levis there. Of course, if Jordan Addison falls, I would take Addison. I would consider Zay Flowers there. But I wouldn't be afraid to take Levis with your quarterbacks if your league is active, if you can get some value from Purdy, if you can flip Levis once Tannehill is traded or whatever happens there. If you your league better than I do. If it's If it's not so active, I would probably go with Kincaid or a receiver.
The receiver. I hear you. Okay.
Yeah. We are talking round 3 today, essentially the same conversation we had yesterday. We talked about some players that are overvalued and undervalued in the round, in the group of 12. We're going to do that exact same thing today. And Matt, I agree with you. Looking at these names, of course, there's some that I would be avoiding, but there's multiple guys here in this group of 12 players from 25 to 36 that I would want on my dynasty teams. And again, if you've got multiple third rounders, I think you could come away pretty happy with that. I'm going to name those 12 players, and then we'll get into the conversation about who we see as overvalued and undervalued. 25 overall, that would be your 3.01 pick in a typical 12-teamer. Jaden Reed, the wide receiver now of the Green Bay Packers. Jalen Hyatt goes 26 overall. A little bit of a surprise there. That's, of course, a player that was one time looked at as a likely first-round pick in rookie drafts, now at the top of the third round. A couple of tight ends here, a couple of Luke tight ends. 27 overall, Luke Musgrave. 28 overall, Luke Schoonmaker. Musgrave of the Packers. Schoonmaker is the new tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. 29 overall, Chase Brown. 30, Cedric Tillman. Another player that fell quite a bit. I know you and I both were really liking him.
Yeah.
And draft capital wasn't quite there, although he ends up as a day 2 guy. And the landing spot was just so there in Cleveland. Tank Dell, 31 overall, New Houston Texans wide receiver. Israel Abanikanda, 32 overall. We talked about him last week and my despair as he fell so far and landed with the Jets. Honestly, I'm surprised his ADP is still this high. Yeah, 33 overall, Zach Evans, another player who fell way down the draft, but he ends up with a nice landing spot with the Rams. 34, Darnell Washington of your Pittsburgh Steelers. Matt, 35 is another tight end and another Packers tight end, Tucker Kraft, 35 overall. And the last player that we'll focus on today, Kayshon Boutte, wide receiver of the New England Patriots. So that's the list, Matt. That's those are your 12 guys. Let's start with you, and let's start with a player you think is overvalued, one that you think doesn't really belong in this third round range.
Why don't you do your overvalued? I did mine yesterday, and I just took a sip of water and it went down the wrong pipe. So I'm trying to get my bearings here. So give me yours.
Come back with us.
I'm all right. Podcast hazards.
Yeah. Overvalued here. I'm going to go with Darnell Washington. I know a player that
I don't disagree.
You are learning well really quickly here. And honestly, a guy that I really liked entering the draft. In fact, I was debating if Darnell Washington was my pre-draft tight end one, or if it was Dalton Kincaid. I kept going back and forth and flip-flopping on that. That decision is really easy now because Darnell Washington tumbled down the draft, a player that we at one point looked at as a possible late first-round NFL draft pick, ultimately falls down to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and really was just kind of a almost an afterthought at that point. Of course, the Steelers already have Pat Freiermuth as their main receiving tight end. And I mean, I'm looking at this as Darnell Washington may do the exact same thing he did at Georgia, playing alongside Brock Bowers, in that he's going to really focus on blocking. He's called himself the 6th offensive lineman already, referring to himself that way. I know the Steelers are hoping to improve their offensive line and potentially use him that way as much as they can. Honestly, I'm just kind of staying away from Darnell Washington, certainly in the third round.
Yeah, and he's my tight end 6, to be honest with you, and he was like 3rd going into the draft. I didn't know about the knee concerns then, but I think that they are real. I don't know how bad they are or, what extent that means, but I guess they swell up from time to time, and I'll know more about that when I'm at camp. Now, this might be subject to change when I watch him run around in practice and I'm right next to this huge, good-looking human being. He might go flying up my board, but right now he is very much exactly like you said, and it shouldn't prohibit him, but I think it will. They like Zach Gentry a lot, and they like Connor Hayward a lot. Like the 3 tight ends not named Freiermuth are all going to play, and that's not really what you want to hear.
No, another bad sign for Darnell Washington for sure. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm just going to let somebody else have him, which I hate to say because I really liked the player pre-draft, but the knee issue that we found out about, and obviously losing so much expected draft capital was kind of the final straw there. Matt, when we come back, we'll talk about your overvalued player, one you're staying away from in this range.
Folks, it's extremely easy to get caught up what everyone in the world needs from you. You know, I mean, I'm always driving my kids around, or putting my job in front of my own well-being at times too often, which I love, and it's all great. But then sometimes you realize I haven't really done anything for myself in a long time, and you end up being really stretched thin, and it's simply just not really that healthy. And therapy is a great tool out there that can balance those things out, and you can support others, and also keep yourself as happy and healthy as possible. And I used to do therapy, but it's been a long time, and I don't know why I stopped, to be honest with you. But I just think the world got in the way, and it was too hard to make appointments. I remember I kept having to change appointments, and eventually I was like, I'm done. But it was great for me. But the thing is, now with BetterHelp, I might have to give it a try, and I think maybe you should do the same if you're thinking about starting therapy, because I mean, they're great therapists, of course, but it's entirely online. Like, I would have loved that back in the day. It's super convenient. Move your schedule. You don't have to move your schedule around. It's very flexible for you. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, and you'll get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists anytime you want for no additional charge. That doesn't matter at all. So find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's all one word, all caps, today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
All right, Matt, let's get back to it. I named Darnell Washington as my overvalued player, the guy I'm kind of staying away from. Who's yours in the third round?
I like this neighborhood, and I like shopping in this aisle, to be very honest with you. So this is harder for me, where yesterday it was the opposite. I'm going to go with Izzy from Pitt. I just think there's a lot of guys in front of him. I mean, it's a good scheme fit. It's the Niners fit. That's what I wanted for him. But I didn't love the player. I like the production more than the player at Pitt. And I just think he's a little too blocked for my liking.
Yeah, I nearly said Abanikanda, but I couldn't bring myself to do it after all the pre-draft hype I spewed about him. So yeah, I certainly get the concerns there. And again, we talked about it last week as one of our rookie losers. And he certainly has lost value, as evidenced by this 32 overall ADP rank. And as I said, I'm kind of surprised it's not even a further fall, and it could be in the coming weeks as rookie drafts continue. I still like the player, I still like the talent, but it's hard to see him, as you mentioned there. It's hard to see him overcome. I mean, we don't even have to talk about Breece Hall, but even Michael Carter and Zonovan Knight have played well when given a chance. So I mean, we can't even look at Abanikanda as the obvious two there. Could earn that role. He could get there, but a lot standing in his way. So yeah, I understand that one. Anybody else? It sounds like you kind of had a hard time finding overvalued players. Any other guys you consider? Or
my runner-up was Tank Dell, and I'm the first one to say I'm just prejudiced against very little backs and receivers. Landing spot's okay, great college production, but he's my receiver 13, which is lower than he's listed here.
Yeah, we would agree on him. He got the draft capital.
Yeah.
I guess it can be argued if he got the landing spot or not. I mean, obviously the Texans are not a team we normally chase, but that might mean earlier than expected opportunity for Tank Dell. I mean, you hear the stories about, or we've already heard the stories about CJ Stroud asking the Texans to draft Tank Dell. I don't know if you saw those reports.
I did.
But,
I don't know if I like it or hate it.
Yeah, I don't know if it means anything, honestly.
Right. They work out together, and right.
Yeah, might just be one of those, cool stories, but not.
I know they weren't playing 11 against 11 with each other. They're playing on grass or in a dome, and I'm sure Tank Dell looks amazing, but it's a little different on an NFL field in a sloppy Chicago November day.
Very, very, very true. Matt, when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Talk about some players that are undervalued, players that we would certainly be targeting in this range. Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Every dayers, be sure to check out tomorrow's show. Kate and Marcus will be back. They'll be talking about the 4th round and beyond of these Dynasty rookie drafts, looking at our Superflex ADP. So check that out to find those deep late round sleepers. Matt, let me say those names one more time so you can find the undervalued player or players that you would be targeting. Jaden Reed, 25th overall. Jalen Hyatt, 26. Luke Musgrave and Luke Schoonmaker at 27, 28. Chase Brown, Cedric Tillman, Tank Dell at 31. We've already mentioned him. Izzy Abanikanda at 32. Zach Evans, Darnell Washington, Tucker Kraft, and Kayshon Boutte. We've got 4 tight ends in this 3rd round. We've got a couple of players that we thought could be first rounders, guys like Jalen Hyatt. Cedric Tillman had a chance. Zach Evans, if you want to go way back to the beginning of the offseason, looked like a surefire first rounder. He falls to the 6th round of the NFL draft and now has fallen to the 3rd round of Dynasty rookie drafts. Undervalued in this range. Who is it, Matt?
Most of these guys I like at this cost. So Dell and Abanikanda are the ones I didn't love, and I was kind of with you on Washington. But I think Jalen Reed at 25 is much closer to 15 than 25. I mean, I'm a big fan. I remember when we did pre-draft stuff, I think I was way ahead of consensus on him. I think the NFL, or at least the Packers, agreed with me. He may outcatch. I think he has a chance to be their leading receiver this year.
Yeah, I thought that's where you were going. Again, 25 overall, the 3.01. You really almost need to go back to the conversation we had yesterday about second rounders. That was Charbonnet, Mayer, Kendre Miller, Mingo. I think Mingo versus Reed is a reasonable conversation to have. If you prefer Reed, I get it. Laporta, Roshan Johnson, Rashee Rice. I want Reed over Rashee Rice. I think you probably agree with that. Spears, Downs, Mims, Hooker, and Bigsby. So, I totally agree with you that Reed belongs more in that second round range. And obviously he's close, one spot out. And maybe we talk about this data next week or next month, and he's in that second round. But I totally agree. I love the landing spot. I like the player. He was growing on me as we got closer to the NFL draft. And to see the Packers use that draft capital on him, taking him above some of the other receivers that honestly I like more, Downs, Mims, in that range for sure. That says a lot. And then you factor in the need that the Packers have for a wide receiver after Christian Watson. Reed's going to have an opportunity to play right away, I think.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
I keep going back to Cedric Tillman, and this was, again, a guy we talked about a lot because you and I both like him quite a bit. I know Marcus was in on Cedric Tillman as well. And I don't know. What do you think about this Browns landing spot? They had Amari Cooper and DPJ last year and not much else. I guess David Bell was probably their third wide receiver there, along with the tight ends. Then they trade for Elijah Moore and they draft Tillman. So how do you think that Browns depth chart shakes out in 2023?
I think Tillman plays a lot. I think it's pretty clear that they didn't draft a running back. They let Hunt go. They let Johnson go. I think it's going to be a very wide receiver centric offense, which of course plays to Watson's strength and him in the shotgun. I don't know if Watson's good though. I mean, he was really, really bad for them, but he had a 700-day layoff in between games. So that's my bigger concern than the competition he's going to face, because I absolutely think Tillman will be in the top 3 and that they will be a heavy 11 personnel team. Probably a lot out of the slot, although Elijah Moore can do that as well, but they're different types. So I think it's a good landing spot. And frankly, I'd have to look at Amari Cooper's contract situation, but is he a long-term solution for him? I mean, as expensive as Watson gets, guys like Cooper might not be someone you can keep.
Yeah. Very good point on Amari Cooper there. So do you think Peoples-Jones is the one kind of pushed aside here with the additions of Tillman and Moore?
Yes, but I don't dislike him. But I think it's safe. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good wide receiver 4, right? And he was a terrible wide receiver 2. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, that's perfect way of saying it. I agree with that.
Zach Evans here at 33 overall. I know this was a guy you liked quite a bit. I had some concerns, and unfortunately, those concerns came to fruition as he fell in the draft. But the Rams, right? He gets the landing spot that we don't mind, that we like. Cam Akers, who knows what the Rams and Sean McVay think of him right now after trying to trade him and nearly reportedly releasing him last season. What are you doing with Zach Evans? You willing to gamble on him at this range, or maybe even higher?
I don't coach speak this time of year. Everybody's in the best shape of their life, and we love them, and blah, 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 blah. But there has been some good buzz about Evans from McVay directly, from what I understand. He's a talented young guy. We're excited to work with him. All the things you want to hear, but usually don't hear about 7th round picks. I mean, the fact that he's behind Izzy to me is kind of laughable. I mean, Evans is my running back 9 and Izzy's my 13, okay. So I'm in. I mean, at this price, I would buy Evans all day long. Even if he doesn't last long, I mean, I am confident that he will have splash moments in this league. And there's certainly, the thing you taught me more than anything is I guarantee at some time in the next 2 years, he's going to be worth more than the 3.8. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I totally agree. As we wrap up here, I want to ask you about a couple of tight end situations. Let's start with the Green Bay Packers, because both of their rookie tight ends are in this range. Luke Musgrave at 27 overall, yet another guy that I know you were a big fan of.
Loved
in
him.
fact, I think he was your tight end.
He was my 1.
2? He was your 1. Okay.
He was 2, I think, whatever. He was higher than most have him.
Yeah, you really liked him. Size, speed guy. The Packers take him early on day 2. They come back later and take Tucker Kraft, who fell a little bit further than expected. Maybe that wasn't the plan. Maybe that was a value pick that the Packers didn't feel like they could pass up anymore. But regardless, they end up with 2 tight ends, Musgrave and Kraft. How do you see this shaking out, and how much has Kraft hurt Musgrave's value in your opinion?
A lot. I mean, we have seen instances where Mark Andrews does great, even though they took Hayden Hurst and, things of that nature. But these guys were both stocked down after the draft for both of us, I think, whenever we did that last week, which is unfortunate, because there is a lot of pie there. I'm sure there's a lot of available targets in Green Bay, but is there enough for 2 tight ends? Do we know which one will even win the job? Because I think they're both really good football players. So I kind of just don't want involved, So guys like Chase Brown, Cedric Tillman, Zach Evans on this list, I would take ahead of both of them.
Yeah, I get that. I do think most were looking at Kraft as more of a long-term, I don't want to say project, that's probably not fair, but a long-term investment where if he had landed behind a veteran who was maybe nearing the end of his career, that that would have been a nice landing spot. That's not what happens here, but
No.
I do wonder Musgrave, who I look at as very pro ready. It's been widely talked about. He comes from an NFL family. Bill Musgrave is his uncle, I believe. Musgrave, I look at as ready to go and could really have a lot of success and earn that starting job for 2023. And then maybe 2024 is more of a conversation depending on how Musgrave plays this coming season.
No, I don't disagree with that. So you're taking Musgrave at this price? Is that your point?
Again, he's 27 overall, 3.03. I do prefer Tillman to him for sure.
I like him better than Schoonmaker, who's right behind him.
Yeah, I'd certainly like him better than Schoonmaker. And we'll wrap up with that because that's the other situation I wanted to ask you about. The Cowboys bring in Schoonmaker, drafted a little bit earlier than we thought he might be. They've got Jake Ferguson. They've got even Peyton Hendershot, who was an undrafted free agent last year and played, saw some playing time and played relatively well when given a shot. I just don't think that Schoonmaker is good enough to go in and handily overtake those guys. I think we could be looking at a committee here, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jake Ferguson leads that committee when it comes to fantasy numbers.
I think he has three things really working in his favor. Is draft capital. They obviously liked him quite a bit. He went earlier than I thought. With all respect to Ferguson, who's fine, and I own him in a ton of places, picked them up, for nothing. I don't think the depth chart is scary, but it probably is a committee to your point, especially as a rookie year. And maybe most of all, Matt Waldman loves him, so that carries a lot of weight with me. I mean, he puts more time in these guys than anyone I know and is very good at what he does. And I think Schoonmaker coming into the draft was his number 2 tight end. So I never brush that away.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking overvalued, undervalued here, and if I've got to put one of those labels on Schoonmaker at 28 overall, I would say he's overvalued. I want Chase Brown over him. I want Cedric Tillman over him. I'm with you. I'd gamble on Zach Evans over him as well. So, this could end up being a huge spot for Schoonmaker, who, it's certainly reasonable that he comes in and claims that job and goes from there. But I would still be taking a few of those other guys. So, maybe we're nitpicking. He's more like a mid to late rather than a early to mid, third rounder for me.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think we're real far off. I wouldn't mind having him. I think there's potential there. And I would probably pay about this price, but if I'm torn between Schoonmaker and Cedric Tillman, it's not close.
Yeah, totally agree. That's going to do it for today's show. Please make sure you download and subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Remember to follow the show at Locked On Dynasty. Follow Matt at Williamson NFL, and I'm Ryan MC23. We'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.